Morning, y'all. Happy Leap Day, and welcome to the first interview, which is me interviewing me. As I said, I felt like I couldn't ask other people questions that I hadn't answered myself, and so I am going to start here. Um, and so, as I do these Soaring 20 interviews, the goal is to find people who are turning fabulous 40 like me. It feels like such a midlife milestone, but also 2000s babies who are turning 20, 1960s babies who are turning 60. All of these milestones just provide a good time to reflect. That said, if you're curious, once you hear these questions and keen to be interviewed, let me know. Would be glad to talk about how you're aiming to spend your soaring 20s, whether or not it's an even birthday for you. So I think the place to start is now, how do you feel about reaching 40? Is this where you thought you were going to be? That'll be my first question to folks. And I would say I had no idea that this is where I would be at 40. I am in my beautiful home office here. You can see some of the sunlight behind me, as well as a lot of Post-its. That's the ongoing team plan dream. Um, I had no idea I would be here. I think the biggest difference is so many more experiences than I possibly could have imagined. Life has been so much richer in all the good, bad, and ugly. Just so many more things. Again, not all bright and rosy, but good, bad, ugly. So much nuance and richness and learning and growth and life that I think no one warns you about or gets you excited about. I expected, like many of us, I think it would have been so much more linear, right? You sort of do college and then work maybe, and then grad school, and somewhere in there get married, and then after a year or two of marital bliss, have some kids and get a dog, all the while getting kind of a promotion every 18 months. Um, and that's really a big part of why I'm wanting to start this newsletter and a lot of the work I'm doing with Inspiring Capital too. This notion of have your all for me is in rebellion against that linear path that I think we have allowed media and money to make seem like it's the only way. And in fact, as we all know, at 40 or 60 or 20 or 80, it is often not as linear as they tell you it might be. And I think that's a really good thing. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, blah, blah. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling about 40. Really blessed and glad that the road has been as winding as it is and continues to be. Awesome. In my role as interviewer, what's one of the biggest things you feel like you've learned that you want to pass on? I don't know, still learning for sure, but I think a refrain I come back to a lot that I'm always glad to share and pass on is I guess it's a hybrid of two that I've made into sort of my own. So one is this idea, whether it's sort of, old traditional Buddhist or new 21st century self-help, this idea that everything happens in perfect order, right? That it might feel traumatic or weird or hard or unfortunate that something does or doesn't happen, but in fact, that dots will connect in reverse, to add Steve Jobs into the mix. And so this idea that everything happens in perfect order, I then add to the wisdom that perfect is the enemy of the good, right? This idea that if you want to get something good out there, you can't worry about it always being perfect and iterating to death. You just have to get it out. And so I like to combine those and say that everything happens in good order. Maybe it is hard to see it as totally perfect, but it is a good thing that you didn't get that job or don't marry that boyfriend or have that fight on that Sunday morning with your partner or whatever it might be. Those things that do and don't happen, I think, often then in retrospect line up and you're like, oh yeah, that was why that all happened there. So everything happens in good or good enough order, I would like to share. Okay, and so what about the next 40? What are you looking for there? Oh, well, Nell, I'm so glad you asked. I think it's amazing these days when, touch wood, we live in a prosperous country despite many problems of healthcare and other things, inequities that we are still living with. But, we live in a place and a time where life expectancy is just increasing, unfortunately correlated to income, which again is a problem. But we will live long and we will live longer, healthier. So I feel incredibly lucky and blessed to know or be able to hope that I will live till well into my 80s, maybe beyond. If I look at my fabulously inspiring grandmother who's still driving her tractor at 95. And so it just stretches time out, right? It's not this race from 22 to 62 to work as high up on the corporate ladder as you can. That's obviously not the path I'm taking. But really looking at this next 40 years as even richer and more powerful in the ways that I'll be able to live and contribute to the world. And so I'm really excited about that. So what I want to see, I think in my first 40, I've gotten so clear about the importance of taking care of, number one, not in a selfish way, but in that enlightened, self-interested way um, of being able to take care of yourself, to get yourself in the best shape, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that you can contribute best and be of service. And I've been working so much on that, especially the last 2 years since some incredible work I was able to do in Ecuador with a coach and some spiritual guides there with incredible long wisdom. And I realized how burnt out I had gotten myself after, almost 20 years of full-time work, and direct service work in refugee camps and creating a business and consulting and hustling and a divorce and a new marriage and just a lot of work. I was really burnt out. And so for these last 2 years, I've been working really hard on what the mindfulness practice is, my meditation practice, eating habits, food, working out, physical health and well-being, which has come up and down. Sleep is super important to me. Friends and fun and love and family. And so I just want to get even better and more regular and smarter and more intuitive about all of those things I do to take care of myself going forward. I mentioned in my hot takes, if you read the newsletter part already, that one of the biggest challenges for me has been aligning my work and passion and intellectual adventures with viable financial living and earning, which is probably why I'm doing this work in the world. And so these next 40 years, I really want to be about wealth creation, not for the sake of numbers in a bank account, but for the security and safety that can provide me and loved ones, and for the impact that money can have, right? It's a form of energy in our society. And so whether it's by buying certain things and supporting other companies or investing or donating to valuable, valid causes, I'm really excited about this next wealth creation phase of my life, as I continue to do the things that I believe in, but also harness some of the value I'm creating in the form of wealth that I'm then able to pay forward. So those are some of the things I'm also really excited about, after our first 7 years together, the deepening life with my husband and family. That's been such a rich part of this last decade, and really look forward to that deepening together with our spiritual practices as a couple and family, as well as all the fun stuff of travel and building homes and such. So looking forward to it. Trying to remember, as my interviewer self, if there was anything else I wanted to share. Well, a few fun ones to end on. What's your favorite color? And I would say I have really strongly come back to purple. I was a big purple girl as a kid. I remember so vividly my grandmother, the other grandmother, not the 95-year-old tractor driver, but the passed away one, sadly, B, bringing me things that were perp and pointing out my perp girlness. I love the purpleness of those childhood memories, and I'm finding purple more and more in my 40-year-old life now. And a favorite performer or artist? Well, long time of all time has to be Madonna. Saw her on her small venue theater in Chicago a few months ago, and she's just incredible. I know she's maybe a little controversial or something these days, or just not liked, but she'll always be my number one. So there, a true 80s baby. All right, y'all, there we go. See you next week for another Have Your All profile.